Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio, back on the podcast.
The fire service has given me everything in my life. Fire service is not built on shortcuts. One of the best things I ever heard. You want to teach the tricks of the trade, but nobody's learned the trade.
Yeah, but you're working for it.
What are you doing to make yourself better? You want to advance your career? Double down on it.
I challenge you to take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it when we're talking about the job. We're making the job better. We're making the job better. I'm making the job better. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. We are up. I got Division Chief Nate Rice on the podcast today. Nate, my airport driver, my airport chauffeur, I should say, picking me up at 5 a.m. to get me to the airport in Peoria, Illinois. It's funny, Mickey and I were talking about it. When we go to these conferences, the guy that is willing to pick you up and drop you off at the airport sets the tone for the whole conference. And I've been to places where they forget to pick you up. I've been to places where you're standing on the curb for 35 minutes waiting. And then I've been to other places where these guys are lined up ready to grab you from the gate, basically, or through security and walk you out to the car and then do the same coming back. And you don't expect any of that. But what's really cool about it is the airport driver for conferences sets the tone for typically how the weekend goes. And conferences that are squared away and put together usually put forth incredible guys that just want to make the experience great for anybody visiting. And you guys certainly did that for me. I came out for the Illinois State Fire Chiefs Association, right? And I spoke at that conference. And you guys were gracious hosts from the second I got there to the second I left. You picked me up at the airport at what time? Or picked me up at the hotel at what time? It was like
5:30 in the morning, something like that.
if not even before that, right?
Yeah.
But it's that, right? And it was the conversation and the laughter and the forthcoming nature of talking about a job that you love, man. You've been doing this a long time, right?
Yeah. I've got probably about almost 36 years in the fire service overall. 26 has been with Peoria. The last 26 has been with Peoria, and it's been a good career. Been a very rewarding career, and my story is a little unique, Jeremy. I'll be quite honest with you. I'm now in charge of here in Peoria. I'm in charge of fire prevention,
right?
And if you would have asked me 4.5 years ago if I thought I was going to be the dude talking about fire prevention, I would have said you're nuts. You're crazy, man. I like dragging hose. I like busting indoors. I like spraying water, cutting holes. Like that was where my life was, and that's what I did, and I loved it, and I still love it, and I still appreciate that end of that is our main task that we do, and that will never change. But the fact is that when I had the opportunity, and sometimes in life opportunities come along and you just have to know when to grab them. And opportunity came along in fire prevention, and I grabbed hold, and it's been very rewarding. It's exposed me to part of the fire service that I probably didn't understand and appreciate and realize. And it's been good. It's been good.
I don't think any of us realize the other side of the conversation, right? So many of us are just loving the job out in the street, volunteer career. You love being a fireman, right? And it's the craft of it that we fall in love with. But when you start thinking about all the other things that go into this, the fire prevention, we're going to talk about community risk. What are we talking about? Community risk reduction today, right? And what you've been able to do in Peoria, and then bringing your message to a larger platform and sharing with people the success you've had in Peoria is the reason why I wanted to have you on, because the night at the conference, we ended up sitting next to each other at dinner, and we had a fantastic conversation about exactly that. And you told me a little bit about, man, this kind of fell on me, or I fell into it, and you didn't know what to expect, but you said you've gotten so much reward out of viewing the other side of what it takes to run a fire department, I should say.
Right. So we're in a reactive business, right? Like our job 90% of the time is reactive, and that's because we wait until somebody has the worst day of their life and they have to call 911, and then we react.
Right.
And kind of like I said, there always be a need for that. That's never going away. But at the same time, what can we do as a service to our community, as a service to our people, to maybe serve them in a proactive way? And if we can do that, because of where we've gone in Peoria and what we've done in Peoria, if we can do that, like, we have a duty. I mean, we have a duty as firefighters to, provide service to our community in all shapes and forms. And so whether you're saving lives waiting for the 911 call to come in, or you're saving lives proactively, the mission of our fire service across this country is always going to be saving lives. That's
easy said.
Right.
Easy to be said, right?
Right. But there's no definition that says, hey, I'm only going to do that
right
when people call 911, right? And so if we start to have a little bit of a mindset change about, man, maybe if I put a smoke alarm in Mrs. Smith's house, now if she does have the fire, because she probably still will have a fire, well, now maybe she'll get out
right
before me trying to drag her out, right? And so it's just really, there's a book out there, and I promote this book all the time, and I've actually talked with the author. His name's Dan Heath. He writes a book called Upstream, and it's all about really getting ahead of problems and trying to get ahead of a problem. And great book. It's a great book. It's a mind changer for sure. And,
Dan Heath, you said?
Dan Heath is the author's name, and
okay,
yeah. So
is it a fire? It's not a fire service book.
It's not a fire book. No.
So what is it? Give me a little rundown on it. Why was it so inspirational for you?
So this book is really about how to get upstream with problems. And I'll just give you a quick short segment that kind of highlights what the book's about. Dan starts off the book telling a story about two guys having a picnic beside a stream, and this kid's coming down the stream drowning in the water, and the guys pull the kid out and save him. And then a couple minutes later, another kid comes down, and 30 seconds later, another kid comes down, and one guy gets out of the water and starts walking up the bank, and the other guy's like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm getting upstream to find out who's throwing all these kids in the water."
I love that. Yeah.
And
it's just, perspective, right?
Right. Like, and it talks about some, it highlights the Chicago public school system and how some of the things they did proactively to help their school system out.
Yeah.
It talks about Rockford, Illinois had a homeless problem, and kind of some proactive steps they took to try and work around the problems they were having with that. And it really highlights how to get ahead and how to be proactive.
I think what's really interesting about that is when you start breaking it all down, right? It comes from a lot of times a very simple approach, but we overcomplicate it, right? Because the biggest impact is usually the easiest thing to fix, right? And it's usually like the low-hanging fruit of it, meaning it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a large amount of resources or funding or time. Typically, there's one or two things that we can tackle in the immediate that will make an incredible impact on the situation, right?
Absolutely. We just put in, not to segue kind of, but here in Peoria, some things happen and some things that were some game changers for us in the whole community risk reduction world. But, just putting in smoke alarms, just something as simple as putting in smoke alarms I mean, the statistics are that you have a 60% better chance of survival if you have a working smoke alarm in your house.
Sure.
And so just as something as simple as having that simple $20 tool in your house is something that is such a positive thing, right? And we go on calls all the time and go on medical calls or whatever and go into people's houses and we find smoke alarms with dead batteries or with batteries missing or, the low chirp that the battery needs replaced. And it's like, what are we doing if we're not saying, hey, we're going to get you, you know what? We're going to get you a battery. Mrs. Smith, you know what? We hear your alarm going off or we see you don't. We're going to get you a battery. We're going to get you a 9-volt battery. We're going to put it in there for you. And we're going to make sure you're as safe as you can be here in your house. So
simple. Right? I mean, just, we respond to all sorts of calls, but at the end of the day, so much of what we do is service calls. And it's the community, between medical stuff, right? I don't run medical, but the departments that run medical, right? They're always out in the community. They are, and especially in your less affluent communities where people are, struggling to get by in the world in which they live.
Right.
Any opportunity that we could provide on a service call goes leaps and bounds. And if it's a 9-volt battery, just to bring their smoke alarm back online, or even being able to have a box of smoke alarms available to give if you get there and you notice one is missing, right? Such a low cost, low impact on our crews to do, and yet the impact for the community and for the resident is leaps and bounds ahead.
Right.
How do we find that balance, though? Because I wonder, it's one thing being in the street, Chief, when we're out there and opportunity knocks, we have the tools to do it, whether it's a battery or a smoke alarm. But a lot of departments have put in smoke alarm requirements for companies to go out in the street, knock on doors, engage the neighborhood, right? And I can appreciate all of that. But I also know that sometimes can come with some resentment and built-in angst with the companies that are responsible for doing that. It's something else that we have to do. It now becomes a priority over training or something else. So it's finding that fine balance, right? And from you, with all your years on the back step and then being a company officer, I'm sure you can appreciate that delicate balance.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where, I think this highlights a couple things, really. I think proper staffing levels is one of the things that it highlights because, if you have the personnel in your bureau, say, if you're that size of a department and you have a bureau and you have the right number of personnel in your bureau, that helps that relief tremendously right there.
Sure.
But also, I think the other aspect of this is, and I'll kind of veer from the fire to the EMS side just a little bit, because when we talk about community risk reduction, we're not just talking fire prevention. Community risk reduction is really identifying any risk that we have in our community. So, for example, let's say I have a body of water in my community and 20 people drowned every year in that body of water. And I'm not doing anything to say, whoa, that's a problem and I need to address that problem. I would even move this over to the medical side and say, hey, we're sending paramedics to a toothache or a stub toe at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And that's not a sustainable system. And so if we look at community risk reduction as, hey, Mrs. Smith has fallen now for the 7th time in as many days, what are we doing to help her out so that our crews, our men and women who are going on 911 calls at an even higher rate than they have before, like they're not going on that call again. Or our paramedics aren't going to toothaches and stub toes again.
Sure.
Like, what are we doing from a community risk reduction standpoint? And that's where we get into, the talk of, things like mobile integrated health and community paramedicine and different types of programs. And there's some departments across the country that are doing a phenomenal job in that world. Tuscaloosa, Alabama is got an EMS prevention division, which
Interesting.
is,
Yeah.
it's crazy how, and it's very successful. And it's just things like that will help because burnout is real, right?
Sure.
Burnout with our men and women is real. And, I was just teaching some leadership classes to some firefighters in Chicago. And one of the lines I said is, if we could all be as excited to come to work every day as we were the day one we stepped into
hired.
the fire academy,
Yeah, right.
Like that's where we want to be. But when we continue to go on redundant calls, I think that affects us. That affects us mentally, and it challenges us. And so,
go ahead.
So I think some of these efforts can start to look as a positive for our fire departments and for the well-being of our men and women.
I love that. I never put that together, right? When we were talking about community risk reduction, it sounds like those buzzwords that it's something new, right? Corporate jargon. Oh, the fire service wants to do better for the community and address the community's concerns, and this neighborhood has problems, and we're going to throw an engine company at it, right? Like that type of thing. But on the flip side, and what I'm getting from this conversation is the upside for the fire department is when you address your community risks, you can actually better the position of the fire department because you're now more entrenched to understand the situation at hand. And if you're a department that's willing to put resources behind community risk reduction, you're then going to have to listen to the data that you're able to pull from those neighborhoods and communities, which then can dictate our responses and responsibilities. And if we can cut back on those repetitive BS calls, and we can cut back on firefighter burnout, because instead of doing 24 runs in a 24-hour tour, right, you're now doing, even 18 runs. You could take six runs off the clock that day. You might be able to get in some training. You might even be able to get in some recliner time or some downtime and rest time for your people. That's the upside of this. I mean, the one thing is taking care of your community, no doubt. That's the intent. But the reward is you can now address situations and things that are affecting our fire companies every single day.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's like I told you at the beginning, this was. Yeah, I never dreamed I'd be the dude standing screaming at the top of this hill.
Right.
But
did you get kind of thrown into it? Like you became a division chief. There's only so many opportunities in the division chief world of what you're going to be responsible for, right?
Right. Basically, it was at a point where I was an operations battalion chief. I mean, I was in operations all 21 years before I took the position I'm in now, and the opportunity came up. Hey, there's a division chief spot. It's in fire prevention. Put your app in, and let's go and see what the fit, if it's going to be a fit. And I did, and kind of went through the interview process for the whole thing, and the chief at the time selected me to take the spot, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a learning curve, and it was.
I'm sure
it was definitely a learning curve.
Was there a CRR division before you took over this position?
Not at all. Not at
all. Were you tasked with? Was it somebody else's vision, or was this something that you kind of implemented and started following through on?
Yeah. So this was kind of my baby a little bit. So I'll tell you kind of how it all played out. And I knew, coming from operations, I knew that we had a distinct. Here in Peoria, we had a distinct division between, like a disconnect between operations people and prevention people. Like nobody knew what each other did. Like
I think that's everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we were that different. And we had the opportunity to apply for there's a group out there called Vision 2020.
Okay.
It's a huge community risk reduction organization. They do a ton of stuff, and they were going to offer 4 days of on-site training for community risk reduction to one department across the country. And I thought, you know what? I'll put our application in. I mean, what the hell? Why not? Let's see what happens. Sure. And lo and behold, a month later, because I'm thinking they're not going to pick Peoria. They're going to pick one department across the country somewhere else, whatever. Lo and behold, a month later, we get an email. Hey, guess what?
Congratulations.
Right. Vision 2020 is coming to Peoria. And I was like, whoa, holy crap.
Yeah.
And
no idea what to expect. I'm sure, right?
Not at all. Not at all. Like, I mean, for us to say before this time, for us to say community risk reduction was probably a little bit foreign. And it was like, okay, I think I kind of know. I think it's mainly fire prevention, but I'm not really exactly sure. And
I'm sure there was kind of a stigma around it too. Like,
right. Yeah. So these people came in, some true leaders in community risk reduction across the country, and they came in and they spent 4 days, and we had a really solid group in the room that went through all 4 days of the training, and we included our operations people came in, so they sat through it too, and like there was just such a huge appreciation at the end of that 4 days of really what community risk reduction was. We looked at data. I mean, because looking at data really kind of is the basis of community risk reduction, because if you say you have a fire problem, you need to almost show or prove that you have a fire problem. A great example that I like to always use all the time, and I speak at several different conferences about this and what it means, but like, I asked the people in the room, I'm like, how many of you people have a major problem with kids' clothes catching fire? Right? And nobody really does. But we're still teaching.
Yes. Right. Non-flammable pajamas, right?
Right. Like, we're still teaching stop, drop, and roll. Like, that's
right.
Because it's cool and kids like it and it's fun. But it's like, that's not we don't have a problem across the country with that thing in particular, right?
Right.
Now, should kids still know it? Yeah, probably to some degree they should, but it just, when you talk to kids about, what's the number one thing that that's important to keep you safe in your house, like the answer should be a working smoke alarm, right? Like that.
Sure.
Not necessarily stop, drop, and roll, because our data doesn't show that that's where our problem lies.
Right.
And so, so our men and women in Peoria learning just that aspect of it, that was a huge game changer right there in itself. And then
let me ask you, Chief, real quick, just with this, and you're talking about data. Was Peoria good at compiling data before you initiated these programs? Because I got to think now that you're doing this, you have to get the supporting data to help push this mission forward. But before that, did you know how many residential structural fires you had without alerting systems, without alarm systems, smoke alarms? Like, did Peoria compile that data to help you make a case for what you do?
So I think I'm gonna quote one of our fire investigators who really said this best. He when he went through, because they did like a interview process with each of the individuals, and at the end of the training, what'd you learn, what came out of it, he said, we're kind of like, if we could sit here and say, yes, we know we go to a lot of cooking fires at this one particular location.
Right.
But once we have the data and we see the data and we see the numbers and we go, oh, wow, yes, we really do go to a lot of cooking fires. And it just reemphasizes really kind of what we know as firefighters and what we know out on the streets. But then when you turn that into data and it's like
right.
you see the actual, you see the chart, you see the bar graph, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that's pretty accurate. And then you can narrow it in, and now you can target in on where your risk or where your problems are. And so I would say in Peoria, previous to this Vision 2020 training, that we did gather data, but whether or not we interpreted it and sat down
right.
and looked at it correctly, like that might be up for argument to some degree.
I think there's a difference between the street data and the board table data, right? And it's like you can make your bar graphs and pie charts and spreadsheets look like whatever you want, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the conversation on the street. It's your engine company, your truck companies, your fire investigators that know that this housing complex has a history of cooking fires, and we go there, and a lot of them probably don't even get reported as fires because they're out on arrival or something like that. So now the report doesn't reflect it completely. But this is where you need to get buy-in from your boots on the ground, right? The companies on the streets have to be able to give you good data, because if they are giving you clean data, right? Here's the parameters. Here's the expectations. This is what I need to know on your fire reports or your daily run reports. I need to know these certain things because it helps us with the risk reduction.
Right.
Yeah.
And in turn, it helps them. Like
right. What we were talking about, for sure.
And when it comes to, hey, we need another rig in this territory, or we need some more staffing in this territory, or we need, when we want to show all of that to our policymakers, all of that helps, and so that's where I think too there was a little bit of a game change for us here in Peoria. Is like once our people realize, hey, having that data can be a pretty powerful tool in a lot of different ways. Not only, yes, this is where our problem is, this is where we need to put resources, but also when we say, hey, yeah, we need another rig here because this data shows, hey, we have a problem area right here, and that's where we need to put our resources, right? So I think even, the lowest, the newest firefighter coming in, like, when they even showing them, hey, like, look at what this said, look at this, and they're like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Like, I mean, may not be as cool as taking an axe through a door, but it's kind of cool, right? Like,
well, I was going to ask you that, right? Because the reward for so many years in your career was going to fires and bettering yourself and watching your crews perform, right? And that's the satisfaction that keeps you coming back. It's the challenge, it's the thrill, it's the mentorship and mentorees, right? Like all of that. That's what fuels you. But now you're sitting in an office. You're probably going to a lot of meetings and so on. And so how do you find, what'd you say, 26 years in Peoria, right? 26 years there?
Yeah.
You're 26 right now. Your reward is different, I know you're still covering some, tour commander stuff during, certain times during the city, but you're not going to fires every day now, right?
Right.
So that fuel for you, what's it look like now? Like where's the, we got this one. Like where's the fuel?
Right. We've had, since going through that CRR, going through that training, we've had a real mindset change. Our individuals in prevention are probably more integrated with our operations personnel in many different avenues and many different levels than what we have been before. I think, I would say our operations personnel, they interact with our prevention personnel probably I would say almost on a weekly basis in some form, way or another. Whether that's our prevention people going out and maybe taking operations people to look at a building that they know they should be aware of, or to kind of explain building construction to some of our people that are in operations, and because of some uniqueness of a building they've came across that was maybe in the middle of construction. And so when our people start to develop those bridges and those connections, I'm like, because that's making better firefighters, that's making better company officers, that's making better decisions on the fire ground, because you know the structures you're dealing with every day. And so when I see that, and I see that click, and I see the disconnect that I saw for 21 years of my career kind of start to come together, I'm like, we're making some progress in this thing we call the fire service. We're moving ahead a little bit, and like I said, I'd give my left arm to ride out one more time on the truck and drag a hose line one more time, and every once in a while I may go to the training tower and get into the burn box.
You need to
get into the burn box, right?
You don't want to lose that.
Yeah, and I think it's important. That's important, I think, for everybody across. No matter what rank you end up at, or no matter what rank you go to. There's some basics of this career and this occupation that you should always have.
I think it also helps with you getting that buy-in from the companies in the street. You're not some stuffy chief sitting in the ivory tower, right? You still want to get out there and get hosed in the street, but you value the work that you're doing. And I think what's really interesting about that is, like, I always say, with maturity comes clarity. And it's like all those years through your career, busting through those doors and going to fires, right? Like that's the yeehaw cowboy stuff we all love doing, and we still want to do it.
Yeah.
But as you promote up, right? The only way we make change is when we get a seat at the table, and we need those guys that have longevity on the back step to sit at that table. And we also need them in our firehouses too. But we also need them at the table where decisions are being made, so that those decisions represent the best of the department and the people that want to go do this job, right? We want the right people making decisions for us.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the clarity comes from, right? It's like you've matured throughout your career. I'm going to say you have. I know you'll probably disagree. However, right? None of us are mature, but you know what I'm saying, Chief, right?
Yeah,
you have a different perspective today. You've been there. You've done it. Now I'm going to try something different. And I think what's fun about that is, a lot of times that's what pushes you even further. A lot of the guys that I get to talk to on this platform that have moved up the ranks, they take on different, I'm in the training division now. I never thought I'd want to be in training. I absolutely love being in training. I'm in subcode. I'm in fire prevention. I'm this, I'm that. It's kind of cool because it also makes you a better fireman when you round yourself out, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can make clear decisions too, because you start to have an understanding really of many levels that you just don't think about, and I love the aggressiveness that our firefighters have, without a doubt. But then having that knowledge of building construction, and having that knowledge of, it could mean a difference between, the worst case scenario and the best case scenario.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, right? And so, obviously we're still losing too many firefighters across our country every year, and so our goal should always be for that number to hit 0 one year, and if we can ever make that happen, and so
right.
This is kind of an aspect where, hey, maybe it's a little bit of knowledge of how a building's constructed, and what what I need to look for, hazards I need to look for. I mean, when you get into the inspection side of things and you start walking through buildings and you start really looking at buildings and seeing things, like you find some things that you probably would not want to send a company into under fire conditions, right?
Right.
And I think as a not only a company officer but as a battalion chief or district chief or whatever, even on the operations side, overseeing those crews, being an incident commander, like having that knowledge it could be a game changer for you.
Well, how often do we see it, right, where there's a lack of communication between the different divisions within a fire department, and then, God forbid, next thing you know, like information that was known to the subcode or fire prevention office never made it down to the companies that are operating in the street, and next thing you know, there's a tragedy,
right?
And they turn around and go, "We had the data, they just didn't know,"
right?
And you think about that, and and this is where it takes me, because now I'm thinking about like the other parts of your division and what you do, but it's we talked about buy-in of your companies, but it's also creating a conduit of information sharing, right? Like. Yeah. When you get to know the people in the different divisions within your fire company, it all becomes one and not all these separate units, right? What we can then do is find a way to channel information, and that way everybody is familiar, especially in your first due, right?
Right. Yeah. It's I said when I walked into this role 4.5 years ago, I said, the safety of our citizens, and the safety of them being in buildings and being protected in buildings with, fire alarms and sprinkler systems and those, that is extremely important. I said, but quite honestly, my most important point is, and to me, the number one job I have as the chief of fire prevention is to make sure our men and women go home every single day. Because they are not going into dangerous buildings. They're not going into buildings that are going to collapse on them. They're not going into buildings like that should never happen under my watch is my thought in my mind. And so, and I've said that from day one, like that is my job as the division chief of fire prevention. And
yeah.
So the other stuff is important and needs to happen. But at the end of the day, I want our men and women to go home each and every night.
Well, and that's it, right? And I think that's where we need people that understand the fire ground to be in the position that you're in today, right? So that you find that balance between the two. Mm-hmm. I think that's super important.
Yeah. Absolutely
important. And that's how you push this mission forward.
Right. And at the end of the day, we always go back to the mission.
Yes.
And the mission's always going to be saving lives. That's it. That's going to be the mission from day one till we walk off of this career. And how we do it and what we do and what collaboration we can bring together, that could look different. But at the end of the day, we're all striving for the same thing.
Yes, but we got to be careful of that conversation, because I think not so many, but many have lost track of what this mission is, right? And we have our fire companies and firefighters focusing on other things before training and response. And, and when you, and maybe not in such a busy department. Peoria is how big, Chief? How many companies, how big population?
We have 12 stations. 3 of those stations are engine and a truck. The rest are single engine stations. So
it's 12 and 3.
Yeah, and we run about 24,000 calls a year.
Yeah. So if you break that down, you are the average mid-sized city in every state in the United States, right? And very common to be between like 5 and 15 engine companies. 3 to 6, 7 truck companies, right? Like, you're right in that wheelhouse that so many cities can recognize. And not only that, I was in Peoria. Yeah. It's not the tree-lined streets of Main Street, USA. There's some tough areas there,
absolutely,
right? And going through some revitalization, but there's also some areas that are in need of attention.
Yeah,
and so it.
Yeah.
it makes for an interesting place for companies to operate, right? But I think so many people can subscribe to that type of city because that's where they work or volunteer. And so there's things happening like you're doing in Peoria where you can make a difference with putting together the different divisions and forging forward. And community risk I'm impressed. I didn't know much about it, right? I've heard the buzzwords before, and then you and I sat down when we had dinner that night, and you were talking about it, and you were kind of like gloating about it. Like, and I'm like, how is this guy so excited about, smoke detector programs and, like knocking on Mrs. Smith's door, but getting a sense of like what the mission is. You guys haven't lost focus. The mission is firefighting 101. And then what happens from there is you're able to take care of your community just a little bit better, but you could also take care of your own people a little bit better.
Right.
And that's still staying focused on the mission. We don't need to make building inspections and smoke detector programs the priority of the daily tasks of our company. But if you get them to buy in and understand that opens up the data channels. That allows for, more community involvement, which can allow for community groups to fight to keep your engine company open when they want to brown one out. Or you want us to do all these programs and we have 3 on the engine and we might need a 4th. Like, that's the upside, right?
Correct.
That's awesome.
In the positivity that comes out of it, I think is very hard to, we deal with a lot of negatives, just in this career, in this world we live in.
No doubt.
Sometimes our success rate is not fantastic. And so whether that's in an emergency scene or even non-emergency scenes, dealing with, some of the other, kind of you said, political side of it or whatever, or the and I think, when you look at it from that perspective that, hey, we can do something on a positive, I think that's where you really kind of start to make a difference. And it helps. I mean, it's going to help our men and women, mentally, that having that positive aspect is, I think it's key, because our men and women, they need some relief, and they need some relief from what they do every day, what they see every day. And so,
they also need to know they're supported.
Right. Absolutely. And and this is the other thing. This is the other thing I tell everybody too is the goal of community risk reduction at the end of the day is to make a safer, healthier, more resilient community.
Right.
And you go to any community leader or anybody who's influential in your community and you say, hey, guess what we want to do? We want to make our community safer, healthier, and more resilient. You're going to get it's going to be pretty hard pressed for them to say, yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Right.
Like, so this is, a lot of this, a big portion of this CRR stuff too is outside relations. We build partnerships with people outside of our 4 walls of the fire department. And that's
what I was going to ask you, man. Yeah. You're out there shaking hands and talking programs and making relationships that support the mission. You have to get support from your fire chief. Mm-hmm. You got to get support from City Hall. All of this comes when everybody's hard pressed for cash. So I'm sure you have to get resilient in your effort to find funding, to run these programs, to find buy-in from the community. I mean, it's quite a task. I can only imagine.
Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, without a doubt. And we here in Peoria, we've been very fortunate. Our fire chief has 100% supported us. Our city administration has supported us. So. It doesn't mean we get every single thing we want that we go and ask for.
Sure.
But I don't think really anybody does. But we do. They do support us and they do back our efforts. And we have some great partnerships outside of the Peoria Fire Department that help this helped this movement happen. And so, it's good. I mean, it's been good. It's been positive. I can't really even, if I even try and think of a negative aspect to it, I can't even, I mean, other than it'd be nice to have more people to do more things, to do, whether that's inside our department or outside our department, whichever. But I mean, it's just been kind of a crazy change here, at least in Peoria. But I think it's, we've got some things going too across our state here in Illinois. And
well, that was going to be my next question, right? It's like, I know we had to change the date on this twice to record, right? First time it was me. The second time you had to, you were teaching. And I was really impressed by that. Not that you were teaching, but like you were going into other communities to share the success and the mission of community risk reduction. And, it's like, again, it's something, I almost feel like it's always been a part of what the fire service is, but now it's titled and now it's got more attention.
Right.
And so for you, you're now traveling, talking, speaking about this, right? I mean, being on this show today, I'm sure is going to drum up a lot of conversation with people that, maybe have dipped their toes in the water with it, but really haven't pursued it. I would not be surprised if a lot of people reach out to you after this episode to kind of pick your brain on it. So, I hope you're ready for that. But, but I mean, you're out there talking now and you're putting together information for other departments because you see the value in this. So what's that look like for you?
Yeah, no, it's been, I give a presentation at several conferences just about changing the culture, and kind of changing the culture of your department from basically not even knowing what CRR is to basically making it a priority. And what does that look like? And how do you include your operations people into this whole jigsaw puzzle that you're putting together? And what does it look like? And the fact that it's strategic in nature, and we're not just saying, oh, let's go do this because it seems like the right thing. No, we have data that says that this is a problem and that we need to address it. And so now we get strategic about what we're doing, and we start putting strategies together to combat the data that shows us where our problem is. And I have been very fortunate that I've been kind of asked to come talk about it to some different venues and different conferences and different places. And
have you been ahead of the curve?
We're improving. We're improving for sure.
Because it's only in the last year, 18 months maybe, that community risk reduction has become. Maybe it's the phrasing of it. Maybe it's the mission of it. I don't know. Fire prevention has always been around.
Right.
But this goes deeper than just fire prevention, right? I mean, that's the difference, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. I mean, fire prevention is just that. We're trying to do things to prevent. We're trying to do things to prevent the fires from occurring. Community risk reduction is, we're being strategic because we're taking data, we're analyzing that data, and we're saying, because of the data tells us this, we need to do this to stop where the problem is actually at. And fire prevention is a significant portion of CRR.
Oh, of course.
No doubt about it.
No doubt.
It's just, there's such a widespread, things that really CRR looks at.
Yeah.
Outside of just fire.
Are there organizations out there that assist with the data? So, I mean, Peoria, you guys are collecting your own data, but do you have data in the state of Illinois? Do you have data across the country? Like, what does that look like?
Right. So kind of a unique thing that happened in the state of Illinois about a year ago. They took community risk reduction and put it under the umbrella of our state fire marshal's office. Mm-hmm. So they are looking at a whole statewide community risk assessment to kind of see, put some data together. But honestly, data can be as easy as, whatever your incident reporting system is.
Right.
Pretty much every software that's out there that's doing incident reporting now can spit you out pretty much numbers and figures and graphs and things like that make it pretty easy to start to say, oh, wow, hey, looks like at this time or this date we have more prone, we're more prone to fires at this particular, in this neighborhood or that, that particular day or time or whatever it is. And most of your record keeping systems can give you that information.
Yeah. What's really interesting is the information's there. A lot of it is built in, right? Through our reporting, whether it's, everybody's switching to Nearest now or whatever it is, right? But, your in-house reporting or even just within your battalion, understanding the hot spots or the issues at hand, right? Like the data is there. It's then what do we do with it, right? And it goes back to that disconnect that we were talking about before where fire prevention and operations typically don't get on the same page and we don't share information. And when tragedy happens, well, we had the data, but the guys on the street didn't know. The ones that needed it most didn't know the information, right?
Right.
And so that has a lot to do with this because we have the data. A lot of the data is readily available. It is who's assigned and who's responsible for, pulling this data out of your everyday and then putting a plan and then executing on it.
Right.
I think that is where we fall down often.
Right. Absolutely. People look at data and they worry that, like, they hear that word data, like, oh man, that's way out of my league. I didn't take statistics in high school.
I kind of understand that.
Right.
I'm kind of there with that.
Right. And I appreciate that. And I would tell you right now, like, fully self-admitting, like, I'm not a data guy. Like, I mean, I look at it and I can
Not many of us are, Chief.
But
not many of us are.
I was never in accounting or anything else in school. So, to make it go into some graphs that are readable and some spreadsheets that are readable and things that are pretty simplified, like, it's not that difficult to make happen, especially in many of our reporting systems that we have today. Most of that stuff will pop out to you pretty easily, and so it's and there's resources. I mean, you look at depending on where you're at, how close to maybe a college you are, if you've got a community college in your town or you've got a community college nearby, you could maybe tap into students there that are in, some type of an accounting or statistics program or something of that nature. And they can help out with kind of interpreting those numbers and putting them into very understandable formats, for you. So,
but you have to want to take the initiative, right? I mean, it's like anything in the fire service, right? We got to take initiative, and we got to find a reason why we want to do this. And then, there's always so many questions. I always hear, the one big thing for me is like, oh, fires are down. Everybody says it. Like, they say it every single day. I hear it all the time. Wow, fires are down. I'm like, are they? Do we know that for sure? I mean, we could look at national reporting, but I can promise you this. There are places in this country right now where fires are up. Right? So it's like we paint this broad stroke, and I say that about the fire service, and it's one thing that truly pisses me off, is like when we talk about the fire service, we're talking about it in this broad stroke of like the fire service. And I'm like, yeah, but the fire service is different everywhere you go.
Right.
And so that those nuances and details matter, and that's why localized reporting matters. Localized information and data matters, because Peoria might be on the upswing the last 3 years of fires because they have a lot of lithium-ion fires from the bike delivery messenger people downtown with the food.
Right.
And so now we're having a spike in lithium-ion battery fires, and we're holding them to a first alarm, but we're busier than we've ever been with fires in the last 2 decades.
Right.
That's a real possibility, and it's happening in cities.
Right.
But other areas, it's dead.
And
So it's like that's where localized data matters. And I think where we get into trouble is when we try to do this one size fits all. It just doesn't. I have a hard time with that. I really do.
yeah, and that's kind of, I'll be honest, that's kind of the beauty of community risk reduction.
Yes.
Because
community,
it's
right?
your
Community.
Data. It's
Yes.
your data, not my data. It's your data and your community that you're trying to solve problems for. And so, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that for sure, because not everybody has the same problems. And
What you're doing in Peoria is different than what I'm doing in New Jersey. I can promise you that right now.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely, right.
And so our information then should represent that, and that should be the guidance that we're going after.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate people sharing their information and data from across the country in all different areas. But man, does it just might not resonate here, right? And vice versa. And I think we need to be able to insert that part of it into the conversation that, like, yes, data is good, but your localized data is best.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
And
So what's next for you, Chief? I mean, you seem like things are firing on all cylinders, and you know, community risk reduction is you know,
Right.
really taking a place there, which is fun to watch and to hear the success stories of it.
Yeah.
What's next? What else do you want to do?
you know, I'm kind of a open door type of guy. I just don't close any doors really, and kind of let things kind of maturate as they do.
36 years in the fire service, my man.
Yeah.
Giddy up.
Yeah.
You look young. You look young too.
Well,
God, you look good.
I wish I felt like that every day.
I think it's
that's
the
for
stash.
sure.
I really do. That thing's on point today for sure. For sure.
But no, it's been. I've had a very rewarding career.
Yeah.
It's been very fortunate. Been very fortunate to have some things happen, and I'll just keep moving forward. I think spreading this message about community risk reduction is important. I think it's
cool.
The last couple of days I kind of taught some leadership classes and just about values and having some core values and things like that, and it was pretty well received. And so,
Good.
let's kind of see where all the chips lay at the end of the day, and we all want to be able to someday walk away healthy and happy and enjoy some years after work. So.
Well, I can hear it in your voice, and I see it in your face when we're talking about this. And whether we're talking about stretching a line or community risk reduction, you seem to still have the same joy for it. And I think that that's important, right? Because so often guys get jaded as they come up through and put the years in. And a lot of fire departments do that to people, right? That's just real talk. And so, you seem to still have a really nice way about you in regards to like loving this job. And I think that probably helps you every single day in the position you're in.
Yeah. I mean, we can get up every day and go to work and think about all the bad stuff, or we can be pretty gracious for the things that we have and things that have been put in our paths, and take opportunities. I tell everybody, take opportunities where they come, man, because you never know. You just never know. And it's been good. It's been good, and I kind of hope to continue back down this path for a little while longer, and just kind of see where it all plays out. So
I love it. And this is why for me, like, I love what I get to do, because you and I would have never have crossed paths and so on. And so to be able to, travel and meet people, and then to be able to share your story or a little bit of your story and your passion for what you do today in the fire department, it makes an impact. And I'm just so grateful. And I appreciate you, Chief, really. I mean, this was a lot of fun, great conversation. And I think what you're doing is important. And I didn't know much about it, to be honest with you. And so I was curious where we were going to take this. But it was a great hour with you to really understand the impact that you guys are making there and what you're doing. And it's not just for the community. The other community is our own, right?
Right.
Community risk reduction is not just the community you're responding to. It's also your company, your battalion, your department.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the benefit for everybody in the community, including your own people. And,
Yeah, I love that.
So the mission is the mission, and that'll always be the mission.
Good.
And it's saving lives. So that's what we're going to do.
Well, I can get behind that, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah.
Nate Rice, Division Chief out of Peoria, Illinois. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I'm going to put this out there. I will not be surprised if people don't reach out to you after hearing this episode for a little more information. And I know you'd be willing. So is there a way people can get a hold of you or find you?
Yeah. I'm here at the Peoria Fire Department. They can contact me here at Peoria Fire Department. And I can, I've got phone numbers and cell phone numbers and everything else that I can share with people who want more information. So,
Good.
Yeah, reach out for sure.
Yeah, man. I love that. Well, thank you. Thanks for doing what you're doing, and thanks for sharing some of your passion and love today. It came through, and it was a good message, man. Thank you very much. Nate, I enjoyed it. I look forward to our next go-around together.
Yeah.
I'm going to be back out your way. I'll be in Naperville.
Yeah.
Naperville?
Yep.
I'll be in Naperville in February for a couple days.
Okay.
So...
Cool.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I'm out that way. If
Awesome.
I don't know how far that is from you, but
not too terrible. Couple hours.
got it.
So.
Good, man. Well,
All
thank
right.
you. I appreciate you taking time out. Stay right here. I'm going to sign off the podcast. I'll come right back to you, Chief.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
man.
Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Division Chief Nate Rice out of Peoria, Illinois, talking about community risk reduction. Typically a conversation that so many of us don't want to have, not interested, but I can tell you this. Guys like Chief Rice are certainly making an impact, and it's bettering our everyday as well. And I would challenge you to learn more about it. Community risk reduction is not going anywhere. It's doing what we are supposed to be doing, and that's serving our communities. And it's coming from a different aspect. It's the proactive, not reactive side of what we're supposed to be doing in firefighting. So do me a favor. Take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse, and talk about it. Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. I'm Jeremy. I'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.